Funding Month, presented with Oracle for Startups and American Express, recognizes the stories, lessons learned, and best practices shared by founders and funders around the world.
About Vertex Ventures kali ya.
Yes.
Vertex Ventures is actually a global network of fund. We are headquartered in Singapore, but we have offices across the globe. We have presence in US, in Israel, in China, also in Southeast Asia and India, where I'm part of the fund. We have office in Singapore, in India, and in Jakarta, of course, as well. So all of these funds, actually, we operate independently. So Vertex Southeast Asia and India make investment decision independently from the US team and the China team. But for example, we can leverage from the network that the global network have. And in Southeast Asia and India, we primarily focus on early stage investments, and we are quite sector agnostic. So we really are open to investing in anything. And I primarily focus more on the Indonesia investments because I sit from the Jakarta office, so it's more natural for me to look into the Indonesia deals. The fund itself is actually one of the largest fund in Southeast Asia. In Southeast Asia, we manage, I think, over $700 million. Globally itself, our AUM is over $4 billion itself as well. So we were also one of the oldest fund. We have been around for 30 years. So we've invested, in quite a few companies. I think one of the more familiar names would be Grab. So actually, we are the earliest investor, Series A. We led Grab Series A round when their valuation was still in the teens, and I guess most people would know now that they're one of the biggest company potentially to be with the SPAC coming soon. So yeah, I am very keen to invest more in startups in this region and hopefully to find more of these grabs in the future. So yeah, that's a bit about Vertex and me.
All right, that's amazing. I'm pretty sure a lot of people here have a lot of questions for you too. Talking about Vertex, what type of startups do you look for specifically right now, after the pandemic especially?
Right now, okay. I think we are still quite sector agnostic in general. For sure, we do focus more on startups that are not really hit that much by the pandemic. That said, I think we are more optimistic today versus maybe 9 months ago. But I think now the world, the VC world, I guess, has more emphasis on startups that has better path to profitability, regardless of industry. But in general, I'm still very excited for consumer startups, fintech as well, and B2B enterprises too.
I see. Okay. I would like to know a little about your personal funding stories atau funding by Vertex that you were personally involved in. Could you share us with us some of those stories?
Sure, yeah. We've invested in a few companies in Indonesia, even including when I was here in Vertex as well. One of the earliest investment that I did in Vertex was actually an edutech company. It's called Gredu. So it's a school management system for schools. It was the first investment that I did, so it's very exciting for me, doing all the diligence on the ground. So maybe I can share more to everybody here as well, the process in investing Kalia, so everybody kind of understands. So what happens for me, and it was novel for me too because it was my first deal back then. We talked to the company, heard them pitch, and then we did more research. Obviously, back then I was still guided by my boss too. So did more research on the schools, talked to the schools on the ground as well, and when we talk to the schools, we actually hear the pain points that the schools actually go through. So it was really great to hear that, these startup that I'm trying to invest in is actually helping the pain points that the school is experiencing. So then I got, we were more convinced of the value proposition, and then we finally invested. So, but it didn't stop there, obviously. So after the money is wired and all, we still do portfolio management with the company, right? So that's a process that VC would, continuously do with these companies. We would still be in a long-term relationship with the company. So yeah, just FYI for everybody. It's a long-term partnership between the VC and the startup.
Okay, I'm not sure if all venture capitals do that, yang kayak go to the ground and interview.
It really depends. For us, because we were the lead investor, typically the lead investor definitely will do that. But if you are just a participating investor, typically you may or may not do that. Depends. Sometimes you might do it if your check size is a bit big, because the bigger the money, the bigger the risk, right? If you don't know like what you're investing into, sometimes you also put trust in the lead investor as well. For us, we like to do that because we want to understand the pain point a bit better, and because we can as well back then. During pandemic, to be honest, it's a bit hard to do ground diligence. So there has been some challenges, I think, across the region as well. I think some of my colleagues in India might have had limitations in doing diligence. So really, we invested in, really, we kind of changed the way we did diligence as well. So it's more about calling friends, talking to industry experts, less doing diligence on the ground, more background reference checks on the founders. So different ways of doing diligence, I would say.
I see. That's awesome to know. I didn't know that. Could you elaborate more on the process of due diligence study? I'm pretty sure a lot of startup founders would like to know, like how
Sure.
do you do the financial and legal due diligence?
Okay. Mungkin take a step back dulu kali ya. So, when we do diligence, there's different types of diligence. It could be like the very initial research stage. So, for example, the stage before was that the company pitches to us or share their vision of the company to us. And then what we do is that we research first about the industry. It could be desk research, it could be very simple desk research. It could also be on the ground research. Initially without the company's guidance. So it's something that we do on our own. So maybe just calling my friends in the industry. I could be just, if it's like, let's say we're investing in a coffee chain, we'd just really be going to the coffee chain nearby my house. So things like that, right? That's very like pre-due diligence. And then once we kind of already did our initial diligence, we kind of already get an okay and maybe a term sheet given by us to the startup, then we do a more actual diligence. So that's the more formal diligence that would include the legal diligence, that would also include the actual financial due diligence, sometimes conducted with the accountants. Sometimes we can engage with them, again, depending on the stage. So those kind of diligence as well. And then, obviously legal diligence. So those are the steps of diligence that we go through. And obviously, we also do background checks on the founders, calling up everybody maybe that we can access to. And then if everything is okay, if there are no red flags, then we wire the money.
Would Vertex do pre-seed rounds?
Okay, it really depends. Jadi emang sweet spot kita Series A, to be honest. Tapi that is sweet spot. So does that mean that we limit ourselves not investing in pre-seed? No, not necessarily. Do we do that oftenly? No. So agak jarang for us to do that. Kita biasanya mungkin lebih ke pre-A and Series A, sometimes Series B as well. Pre-seed is a very rare case, but we have done that before.
All right, and a little more about Vertex. Is there a portfolio that's successfully exited?
Yeah, sure. We have had companies gone IPO. We have had companies being acquired as well.
All right, awesome. Okay. Okay, moving on to the next question. I'm pretty sure you've seen a lot of pitch decks from your from startups around the world because you're managing Southeast Asia and also India, right? Could you tell us some unique, memorable startups that you personally like atau believe in?
Okay. Biasanya sih yang kita invest ya. the memorable ones. I mean, there are a lot of interesting pitch decks, and there's some memorable startups as well. Biasanya the one that I really like, I would really try to push for it to go through for investments. So for example, one that I have on top of mind right now, ada namanya Aruna. They're a B2B fisheries company. What I personally like from the deck is that they actually share their long-term vision in the company. Long-term meaning kayak even 30-year vision, and that's very rare for companies or for startups to do that. It's a bit uncommon. But that's when I know that the founder is deep serious in doing this. So I really like that, and so we invested in them.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, related to that, so I know founder is a really big criteria, right? What are other three main criteria for you to invest in a startup?
Yeah, founder penting banget. Other criteria, so there are a lot of things that we look into, tapi the three things that are most commonly being scrutinized itu market size, firstly. So because you cannot, market size is very important. Terus problem and solution is there a big pain point that you're trying to solve, and is your solution an answer to that problem. Terus again, it goes back to founders, to be honest, really. Maybe then some other stuff, if not about founder, would be the traction and the business model.
Okay, I'm curious about this founder criteria. Like, can you elaborate more? Ini kan kemarin kayak sempat viral juga kayak haruskah founder itu lulusan luar atau gimana?
Oh, sempat viral ya? Okay, didn't know.
On my newsfeed it was.
Okay. Sure. No, it doesn't have to. A lot of our founders are actually nggak lulusan Indo kok. So what's important for us is that the founder really understands what they're doing. To be honest, we only really have maybe like 1 hour to make an initial judgment call on whether you're a good founder or not, right? Obviously, abis itu kalau misalnya startupnya emang interesting, we would definitely have more calls. And that is biasanya if the market is interesting, as I mentioned before, if the problem and the pain point that you're solving is interesting too. But to judge whether a founder is good or not, I think a few good things that would help is if the founder can really, understand the market and the industry much better than the average founders out there, and definitely better than us as a VC as well. It will be a question mark if misalnya kita sebagai VC malah lebih ngerti daripada foundernya, because you are the entrepreneur, right? I am expecting to learn more from you, and I expect that you understand more about the industry. And then I expect founders to also be very have a strong grasp on the numbers of the company as well. Berarti kan mereka benar-benar ngerti company-nya, and they have a real helicopter view on the company as well. So those are a few ways you can showcase that you are a good founder. Biasanya emang there are like some superficial or a very easy indicators, could be like pedigree atau lulusan luar, like the one in your feed as you mentioned. But those are just something that can help initially. Sama aja kayak interview kan. Oh, maybe GPA di atas 3,5 is good, but what gets you in is eventually the interview anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so take note ya. Ini kayaknya ada yang banyak juga startup founders di sini yang nyari funding. So really know your industry and also very strong grasp on the numbers. Kind of reminds me like Shark Tank. Kalau orang yang nggak inget numbers nih, dia langsung kayak out the door gitu.
Gitu.
Okay. What is one deal breaker for you not to invest in a startup?
I guess multiple bad reference check on the founder. One bad reference check is bisa aja orangnya mungkin nggak beruntung. Maybe I reference check to a wrong person. Maybe there's some bad blood there. But if I do, so once I get one bad reference check, I would definitely do much more reference check just to validate whether that's true or not. But yeah, if that is the case, then definitely no, that's a red flag.
What is bad reference check? Is it like this founder is not responsible gitu-gitu?
Yeah, that could be something, right? Soalnya kan it's not, apalagi for Indonesian ya. Orang Indo kan jarang ngasih tahu hal yang jelek-jelek tentang orang lain kalau kita tanyain, right? Biasa orang pasti ngasih tahu, oh iya dia orangnya baik.
Yeah.
So if I ever hear something bad, biasanya that would mean that okay, there must be something that I should dig more about it. So yeah, then I would definitely need to do much more work on the reference check. But if only one, maybe that's just like, unlucky aja.
Yeah. Whoa, I really need to be careful on my LinkedIn and everything.
No, I realized after being in VC how important it is to always maintain being professional every step of the way, because you'll never know who I reference check to, for example, right? Kan I don't reference check you to only your past job. I can reference check you to maybe like your past 5 years experience or something,
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay, new insight.
right?
On to the next question. So this is more of a general question, yeah. What do you think are the hottest market segments that you're currently looking at as a VC?
Okay, interesting. Um, I think fintech always interesting. There's always new things happening there. Yeah, there's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of new lending models, for example, both to consumer or both to enterprise, and then passing it on to the employees as well. There's a lot of things happening on the retail side as well. I think there's a lot of interesting happening on the consumer side, kayak brand plays as well. So I think those are a few things we are personally looking into.
Okay. If you could predict, perhaps after learning from India and maybe China market, what would be the top industry in the next 5 years in Indonesia? I'm gonna record this, so in 5 years I'm gonna look back.
I hope I don't make it wrong. But yeah, definitely the easy answer to that would be the big markets. So definitely fintech. In Indonesia, agri would be one as well. Agri is a big driver to the GDP too. Edutech as well. Edutech is very successful in India, and we can see Indonesia following in that steps. Definitely MSME enablement. We've seen some hype already in this space in Indonesia, and I think it would continue to be so. And related to that, I can see maybe B2B commerce too. It could be related to certain industries. So for example, also maybe in FMCG, just given that that is a very big industry. Yeah, and we have made investments in all of those industries. So very bullish on all of those sectors.
I see. All right, I'm gonna take some of the questions from Anggi karena ada beberapa pertanyaan. And I'm also curious, how is Vertex Ventures different from other ventures, do you think?
Okay. I think what is different from us. So kalau at Vertex, we typically actually don't invest in that many startup per year. Some VCs are they invest in a lot of startups, so you maybe hear them a lot more on the news because they invest in many companies. It's just a different strategy. So for us, our strategy is to work closely with the company. Jadi mungkin kita invest cuman per partner ya, per partner mungkin cuma 1 sampai 2. Tujuannya apa? Is so that we can invest more of our time with the company, and then we only invest in one company per sector biasanya, so that and help that company grow and not invest in competing companies. We try not to invest in competing companies at least. Some VC has different strategy though, so it really depends for a VC.
What do you think the strategy would be if a VC invests in like competing companies?
Maybe they're just super bullish on the sector. So they really think there's a big potential there, and maybe a different angle per sector for collaboration between the companies. So rather than competing, bikin maju bareng.
Okay. All right. Ini ada pertanyaan dari Kevin. So all this time we've been asking about how VC make deals with startup kan. Tapi what about the other way around gitu? Kayak from the startup side, apakah mereka pernah kayak demanding atau apa pas lagi udah mau dealingnya ya?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. What's your experience?
Yeah, I mean it is within the founders, right? Definitely. Biasanya, for example, misalnya kita kasih term sheet, juga pasti ada proses negonya kok. Most likely ya. Depends on the power that the startup has usually. So for example, if a startup has multiple term sheet, pasti biasanya dia lebih punya power buat bargaining to the VC. Jadi mau nego point A, point B, point C. Even after udah sign term sheet, bisa minta macam-macam juga sih. And could it be a deal breaker? Sometimes it could be. Itu mungkin pertanda aja bahwa mungkin kita nggak cocok kerja bareng. Maybe rather we should just break the relationship now daripada nanti. Sometimes that happens, and it's better for both sides juga kan. Because it is a long-term relationship between the VC and the startup. So I'm rather break up early daripada lanjut telat.
I see. Oke, ini ada pertanyaan lain dari Deo. What are the common mistakes that a lot of startups do? Maybe learning from the portfolio in Vertex juga.
It depends on which part of, mistakes in fundraising or mistakes in like managing the company kali ya. Kalau I don't know which part you're particularly asking on, but mungkin satu-satu kali ya. So kalau mistakes in fundraising, I won't say mistake. Everybody just have different style, and maybe it would not convince certain VC, but it could convince some other VC gitu. So common mistake would be bisa aja mungkin mereka kurang clear in explaining. Mungkin mereka waktu pitching they were not that ready. They did not really understand the market yet. Jadi kalau ditanya kurang ngerti, which makes us think that you're not that strong yet as a founder. So that could be some mistakes you have when you're fundraising. Kalau misalnya pas lagi doing or running the company itself, I think there's just so many things that can go wrong, and it's okay. I mean, as a VC, we're always there to help you anyway. I think what is wrong, I would say maybe maybe doing wrong things in general, like doing things that are legally wrong, and if you do it and then you tutup-tutupin gitu. So even if you happen to do it, what's best that I would suggest is you come to your board, which is your board member, which is your VCs, and then discuss it, right? Sebelum bisa terlalu telat, sebelum jadi PR disaster. But I guess it's just what happens when you're running a company. I'm sure there's a lot of things that can go wrong as a founder. Right?
Yeah. Okay, jadi tipnya just don't do bad things.
I mean, it's okay if you do bad things. If that already happened, what you could do is just fix it.
Yeah.
And then learn from it and have a post-mortem from it, right?
Yeah. Okay. For in the VC world, how involved is VC after investment, especially Vertex?
It really depends. Biasanya tergantung stage-nya. So for example, when we invest in, let's say, pre-A companies, so early stage companies, we try to be much more hands-on, especially karena biasanya we are the first institutional investor. So biasanya the startup is not very used to, let's say, having an external person that they are not reporting to, but like working with, right? So then comes in a lot of things. Maybe we help them fix their financials, help them guiding them to be a bit more professional in a way, not professional, but more like structured in a way. But then once the company is already like Series A, Series B+, Series C, the company is a bit more mature, we can be a little bit more hands-off. Again, it really depends on the need of the company, kebutuhan tiap company.
Kalau yang baru banget tadi, how close are we talking? Like weekly meetings, that sort of thing?
Yeah, weekly, definitely.
Oh, okay.
Can spend like a few days a week too if needed.
Oh, okay. All right. There's another question from Anggi here. Do you think blockchain, AI, AR, VR is still a relevant industry?
I think it depends on the use case. So blockchain itself could be just a jargon, tapi tergantung use case-nya apa, and use case-nya sendiri, market size-nya gede nggak. Blockchain is means to achieve something better kan.
Oke. Gimana nih yang lainnya? Apakah ada pertanyaan lainnya? Anggi kayak semangat banget nih.
Happy to answer anything really.
Maybe Anggi, you can unmute yourself and ask langsung biar this could be more interactive session.
Ya, halo semuanya, selamat malam. Ya, jadi senang banget ya ketemu dengan Mbak Dhia Nabila ini di Vertex Ventures nih. Jadi tadi mau nanya aja, apakah traction is still the king gitu to measuring successfully startup and ready to fund? Yang terakhir sih pertanyaan saya. Kalau yang sebelumnya juga udah dijawab. Terima kasih banyak.
Okay. I think for sure traction is always important. Soalnya traction is an indicator of how good are you, for example, satu, executing as a founder. So for example, kalau misalnya your growth is very good, numbers speak. So even if maybe you weren't as good when presenting, at least I have comfort in knowing that you are able to execute. So that's one indicator that you're a good founder. Kedua, traction is also good in understanding, okay, where you are right now and how should the company be valued. And ketiga, it's also a good indicator of where you are versus competitors. So for example, misalnya ada banyak company yang bisnis modelnya sama. Biasanya kan market yang gede biasanya akan attracting a lot of companies in the space. And biasanya bisnis model mirip-mirip. But once you are a company that is ahead of others in terms of traction, you become the company that definitely want to back more versus others, just because you're one step ahead against others, right? Ngapain juga invest in other companies? Kalau misalnya kalian udah one step ahead, maybe punya first mover advantage, and definitely maybe already on top of mind in terms of the customer. So yeah, traction is king.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's so helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Happy to answer anything else.
Thank you Mas Anggi. Ada lagi yang mau nanya, mungkin bisa langsung unmute juga.
Belum kali.
Maybe bisa raise hand sebelum unmute. Then I will unmute you. Okay, maybe 2 more questions for me. Relating tadi ke topik yang of this event ya, fundraising for Indonesian startups. How do you think we can best manage relationship with investors as an Indonesian startup?
Okay. I think it's pretty simple sih, basically standar-standar aja ya. I think one thing is it's good to know your investors early. So, for example, misalnya kita di Vertex, kita invest di Series A misalnya primarily. It's okay to get to know your investors when you're still in maybe like seed stage kind of traction or maybe even pre-seed. Kenapa? So one, you can get feedbacks from us as well. So you understand like what kind of things we look into in your next stage of fundraising. So you know like what you want to achieve. That's one. Also, for us, it's good to keep track as well. Jadi misalnya we understand like, oh, you were still very early. Maybe at that time you were not the kind of founder we were looking for. Maybe belum mature enough as a founder. But for example, if we see you 1 year later and you've grown so much as a founder, we definitely know that you are a type of person that learns a lot and is very coachable. So that's one good thing as well. Karena coachability is also a thing that we look for in a founder, and growth mindset as well. And so talking early to investors is one good way to manage relations. Second part of that is also maintaining relationshipnya sih simple aja. It's just like maintaining relationship with others. Maybe like sharing updates about your company. You can always ask the investors as well feedbacks anytime. I think most VC would be happy to share feedback to you, regardless of whether they're investing or not. So, I mean, it's beneficial for you anyway.
Okay, those are some really good tips. Okay, langsung ada pertanyaan dari Kevin. This is interesting. Could you tell a story about funding Grab apps when Vertex first met Grab?
So unfortunately, I was not around with Vertex when this happened, so I cannot say into detail juga ceritanya gimana. But I guess it's in the Singapore office team, so the Singapore team made the deal. Yeah, that's pretty much all I can say. I can't say much. I'm sorry.
Tapi di Vertex website tuh dibilangnya si Anthony kasih testimoni gitu kan kayak
Yeah.
Vertex believed in me when nobody did.
Yeah. Karena we are the first institutional investor. Jadi Series A orang kayaknya masuk cuma kita sih. And then we continue to top up. So di Vertex kita tipenya gitu sih. We try to continuously top up in the company. So for example, one of the newest unicorn in Southeast Asia was also PatSnap. I think it became a unicorn maybe a month or 2 months ago. We invested also in Series A. Terus kita masih bisa masuk juga sih di Series E. So something that we try to do to continuously back the company until it's mature.
Wow, that's amazing. How about Fast App? Like, how did you guys? Were you involved in from the start?
PatSnap?
Oh, bukan PatSnap deh, kayak yang satu lagi yang Indonesian.
Oh, PayFast?
PayFast, yeah.
Oh yeah, we did invest in PayFast. Yeah, I think we invested before YC. before they went to YC,
Oh, wow.
or during the time when they went to YC. Cuman again, that was before my time, so I cannot say
Oh.
much.
Okay, well, must be very exciting to see the improvement.
Yeah.
Okay, there's somebody who asked here, can you define Series A?
Series A. Okay, so to be frank, there is a lot of, I mean, it's semantics. A lot of it is semantics, and there's a lot of different definitions out there. Cuman kalau buat kita di Vertex, what we define a good company that we want to invest in, or a typical Series A company would be a company yang the traction kind of already justifies its valuation that they are asking for. What does that mean? Biasanya berarti revenue-nya udah cukup gede, atau traction-nya udah cukup gede buat bisa minta valuasi mereka, dan valuasi mereka kan biasanya kalau Series A udah in the $1 million, right? So it means that, you know, your revenue annually mungkin udah $1 million juga. Maybe. Again, it really depends per industry. I cannot say per se.
All right, thank you.
Biasanya sih apa sih yang paling menyebalkan bagi VC begitu mau funding ke startup terus kayak ini gimana ya gitu. Maksudnya kan ada kan startup yang kayaknya darling banget untuk diinvest. Ada juga startup yang begitu ketemu VC, VC-nya langsung kayak ilfeel gitu. Nah, kira-kira yang sering ketemu itu apa sih? Kasus-kasus apa sih?
Yang suka ilfeel ya? Apa ya? I guess ilfeel itu biasanya kalau suka bohong sih ya. So remember that anything you say, even during pitch, I know that, you know, pitching kadang-kadang agak-agak ngelebay-lebayin supaya jadi bagus. Tapi you have to remember that lebay itu harus ada borderline, nggak boleh bohong. Karena, for example, if you say in the pitch kayak, oh misalnya, oh revenue kita, let's say $100 million, terus kita jadi tertarik kan as a VC, and then pas kita diligence ternyata it's far off from there, definitely kita bete dong. However you frame it, that's definitely a big red flag, and itu bikin bete. Maybe bukan cuma kita yang bete, but you know, other VCs might hear about it as well, right? Because that's like a bad reputation for you to lie. So mungkin kayak gitu ya. Kalau sih saya sih mungkin kayak kecil-kecil aja sih, like it's just standard.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I hope that helps.
Thank you, Mike, for the question. Okay, I think we learned so much today from Nabila in this short time. We learned how to be prepared, that we must be prepared, then be honest juga to VCs because they have eyes everywhere.
No, but I mean, in general, just don't lie, right?
Yeah, and also like talk early with investors. Ask Nabila after this for a coffee maybe, and manage your relationship well. Share updates, and don't be shy to ask for feedback. Okay, thank you so much, Nabila, for today. And could you,
thanks so much, Jess.
Before we end, could you share with us like final tips and tricks to sum it up everything, like how to get funding, like that first step that people can do to get funding?
Sure, yeah. No, I think in terms of getting funding, what's most important is building a good business. Good business will attract funding anyway. And as I mentioned before, good business is good VC backable business is ideally a good market size, a big market size, a company that is answering a big problem and coming up with a good solution as well, and trying your best to execute in the best way possible as a founder. And also, I guess, understanding your competitors well and finding the best business model for your business. Once you have your business in place, then you can pitch to to investors, talk to them early, feel free to manage relationships however you're comfortable, but don't lie. I mean, the most important is just be a person with integrity and show confidence and when you're pitching your company, and I'm sure funding will come to you naturally.
Funding Month, presented with Oracle for Startups and American Express, recognizes the stories, lessons learned, and best practices shared by founders and funders around the world.